The Xiaojun barbell weightlifting shoe might be one of the best shoes on the market currently in production, with one notable flaw. So Xiaojun barbell, of course, needs no introduction. They sent their shoe over, and I was very keen to get my hands on this for a review, given how many elite weightlifters I saw get a pair of them but keep wearing them for a couple of weeks and months after they got the shoes. So very often we'll see lifters get free products in many sports and then never continue to use them. But when it comes to weightlifting, this isn't something you're going to compromise. Now, when it comes to a weightlifting shoe, there is 4 different categories in my head that, in order of importance, make up a very good quality shoe. And the first one of those is how I would term the energy transfer section. So this is the most important part of the shoe. The shoe is never to be forgotten. It's a piece of our sport. It's a piece of equipment. It's a tool for you to use. And first and foremost is the shoe's practicality for our sport-specific needs. And this is where the Xiaojun barbell shoe shines. So the first place where we're really seeing a good quality piece of equipment, or a very good attribute, is the rigidity of the sole, with just enough flexibility to allow us to hit good positions in the extension of the snatch, the extension of the jerk, and the catch position of the split jerk, while still having enough flexibility and stability matched for the two of those. Now, we know from evidence, from practical evidence, anecdotal evidence, scientific evidence, that if the surface underfoot to varying degrees is too unstable, we know that our capacity to produce force is hugely reduced as a protective mechanism from our body. So if we're squatting on a canoe with a barbell or a Bosu ball, we know that our body reduces our capacity to apply force to prevent ourselves from hurting ourselves. Now, this is a subtle spectrum, and if something is slightly soft underfoot, we are slightly negatively affecting our capacity to lift. And there's no reason to have that in a shoe, which we've seen from recent shoes from former great weightlifting shoe companies like Nike and Adidas, going in the wrong direction with this style of sole in an effort to appease the functional fitness community. The Xiaojun shoe, however, does not hit that mark. They go straight for the practicality. They're not trying to appease different people. It's just first and foremost a weightlifting shoe, and the basis of the sole is one of the most important aspects of that. Now, the second area that comes along with that in terms of energy transfer is the weight of the shoe. I originally thought these shoes would be quite heavy. They look like a heavy shoe. They looked quite similar to the Anta shoe in terms of how weighty does that shoe look, but I am very pleasantly surprised with how light the shoe is. There is no reason for a weightlifting shoe to be heavy if the design is adequate. We don't need heaviness in a weightlifting shoe to apply stability, because the shape of the shoe, the design of the shoe, and then the weight of the lifter on top of that is what applies the stability. The weight does not need to be in the shoe. Any extra or undue weight in a shoe only makes lifting harder for no good benefit. In terms of real world feel, these feel as light as any current weightlifting shoes. They feel as light as ROM 2s. They feel as light as maybe the tier lifters if you've tried those currently, but with that added benefit of stability. So the lightness of the shoe plus the solidity of the sole with that added just necessary amount of flexion is very good. It hits all of those marks from what we need. Now finally, on heel height, for me personally, the heel height is perfect. I find that approximately that 1 inch or something like 25 millimeters is more than appropriate. For some people, it might be, it depends on your height. Heel height is something in a weightlifting shoe that is somewhat nuanced to that individual. For example, Reebok Legacy 3 feel like they have a very high effective heel height. It feels slightly too high for me, even though the shoe is quite good quality. But then if you compare it to the tier lifter, the heel feels slightly too low. So even though a listed heel height might be the same as other shoes, how it feels on your foot can actually be quite different. This heel height, for reference, feels very similar to the Romaleo 2s and quite similar to Legacy 2 lifters from Reebok if you've tried either of those shoes. So in terms of practicality, we've got a capacity to take great positions. We've got a light foot, so we can lift and move our feet very easily. We can apply force very well through the floor and still have enough flexibility to hit the lifts in the positions without resistance from the shoe. So area 1, the most important, it's where it hits the nail on the head. So category number 2, or area number 2, where the shoe sort of falls down or begins to show some issues, is the comfortability of the shoe. So just generally wearing the shoe while lifting lets you lift quite well, lifts very well if you're able to. The comfortability of wearing the shoe is where it's certainly noteworthy that it might be an issue. And this is based on not that the shoe is built too narrow. If you were to compare the surface area available to you in terms of the sole, it seems quite similar to the Legacy lifters, quite similar to Romaleo lifters. However, maybe even the Anta. However, the material they've chosen here is very, very stiff. It's very, very synthetic is the best way I can describe it. It doesn't flow as well. It doesn't move as well as that kind of synthetic or fake or real leather. The cushioning isn't quite as nice. And I've noticed that my big toes are quite stuffed into the shoe. Now this might be something that is unique to myself. I don't have grotesquely wide feet, but I certainly don't have small feet available to me. I've spent the last several years wearing barefoot shoes quite regularly, spend a lot of time barefoot. But if you have a wide foot, it is noteworthy that they are quite uncomfortable initially. It loosens out a little bit, but I can't see it being as super comfortable until we're several months into lifting with the shoe. However, given that Area 1 is so good, in my opinion, for someone who's really trying to progress their lifting and find a good shoe, this does outweigh part 2 or the comfortability or category number 2 of a good shoe. But it is certainly noteworthy, and for some people, it might be so uncomfortable that it is ruining the shoe for you. Now, it possibly, if you have a less wide foot, it might be something that doesn't really cause a major issue, but it could also be something when you put them on, after a few sessions, you're like, this is still too uncomfortable to me, it's too distracting, and I don't like it when I'm lifting. I'm hoping it will widen out a little bit and the material will soften up as the sessions go on. It's not the most aggressive, it's not like a rock hard leather shoe, but it is very, very noteworthy from the first session and for the last couple of weeks that I've been wearing them. Now, category number 3, marginally unimportant. It doesn't have to matter, but I think as humans, it is important that we have something pleasing to look at. It is important that, art matches our work. And I think it is nice to have a nice looking shoe. My opinion on these shoes in terms of aesthetics is pretty neutral. They're certainly not the most ugly shoe. However, they don't match the original Adidas shoes, some of the Adistars, the Ironworks. Even the Ram 2 have quite a nice aesthetic to them, although that might be just Stockholm syndrome at this stage for a lot of us. The shoe, certainly not the ugliest, does look quite nice from some angles. It looks quite nice on foot. I enjoyed the hot pink. I asked for the hot pink. It was quite a novel shoe color for me, given how many weightlifting shoes I have at the moment. So it is something that I find is reasonably okay. It's up to you. A lot of people like the hot pink. I like the hot pink, but they have a lot of colors to choose from. So aesthetics, very, very personal. I'm sure we could go more into depth on that, but you're not going to lose marks from me. If your shoe is very practical, if your shoe is comfortable, it doesn't matter so much how it looks to a certain extent. Now, lastly, the 4th area is price. So depending on what colorway you get, if you get the gold or silver, or I think they have a new version, the Year of the Dragon version coming out, you're looking at paying at least $250 for the shoe, not including customs, depending where you get them from, and not including postage. Now, postage can't be helped. Postage is very, very expensive at the moment for everything you buy, so probably not fair to include that, in my opinion, on top of the price, but it is noteworthy when you're going buying it. If you're paying customs on it, maybe from Europe to America or America to somewhere else, depending on the trade agreements where you buy it, you could be looking at close to €300 if you were to buy those other colorways. The other base models seem to be somewhere around €220, and if you look on the American site, you seem to be seeing something similar to about $220. If we price match that, if we look at the Antas, if we look at the Ram 4s, which are currently still in production, if we look at the tiers, it seems to be a pretty fair price or price match with the rest of the shoes. It used to be that €200 was the most you'd ever pay for a pair of weightlifting shoes. Now, obviously, with inflation as time goes on, we're going to see that price creep up a little bit. In my opinion, given the price match with everything else, I think they're worth the money. I would be confident if someone said, look, I've got that $250 to spend on the shoe, I can justify it on a pair of weightlifting shoes, is it worth buying? In my opinion, yes. For example, if the Ram 4s were $250, I would be like, do not waste your money on a pair of Ram 4s for $250. However, given that that is the going price, and that's what we deal with, I think they're worth that price. But it is notable, for example, if this is your first pair of weightlifting shoes, we always say, get the cheapest pair of weightlifting shoes you can find. Get the cheapest pair of Adidas Powerlifts that you can get the cheapest secondhand shoes you can get. Just try on weightlifting shoes, try them when you're lifting, try them when you're squatting, and then see what you like and see what you want to go for next. So a little bit of miscellaneous information on these. The sizing seems to fit quite big, which is unusual for weightlifting shoes. Generally I'm a 9.5. In UK size, these are size 9, but the length is very, very appropriate in them. If I was to go for that 9.5, I think the length would actually be a bit too long, even though I probably would have some more toe space in the toe box. The sizing seems to run about half a size big. So if you're 9.5, it might be prudent to get 9 on those. Look on your website that you're buying them from, if you do buy them, and check for the sizing chart, as they're generally quite a good guideline. Now, I know a lot of you will be wondering about just squat shoes, and these will definitely do perfectly well as squatting shoes. Heel height isn't crazy excessive, stability is very good, as we've talked about. So if you enjoy the aesthetic and you're like, I definitely want a new pair of shoes just for squatting in, then I could definitely recommend these for that. Other options would be the Legacy 2, Legacy 3. Generally, most of the better weightlifting shoes are okay for squatting. You wouldn't really notice a lot of differences that you might need in a weightlifting shoe. But if you're like, I would like to try them, I just like squatting, I think this is a fair assessment. So given all that, I think it's a fair 4 out of 5 stars in terms of weightlifting shoe. To be honest, they feel quite similar to a Ram 2. And I know a lot of people are looking for Ram 2s, and rightly so. They're a great shoe. The main thing that the Ram 2 has over these is, in my opinion, the Ram 2 look a little bit better, but also the Ram 2 material here is a lot softer, so that they're very, very comfortable underfoot when you're wearing them. Highly recommend this shoe in terms of current shoes available to you. Do you get hot pink? Sure, get what you want. So I hope you enjoyed today's shoe review. Sika summary. We are obviously very big fanatics when it comes to weightlifting shoe and always looking for the best one. There is, I know from some insider information, there's 2 new shoes coming out this year. I can't say who or where from. One of them we're helping that company with. Actually, we've helped both of them. So I suppose, yeah, we've helped both of them. So there's 2 new shoes I know is coming out this year, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, Sika Strength is not affiliated with either of those, just purely on a consultation basis when it comes to varying parts of those shoes, or a friendly basis when asked for opinions. Currently what's available, I think this might be the best. I haven't tried the Anta 2. I think that's literally the only pair of shoes that I haven't used. I know some of you are like, Asics own, but the Asics are very, very personal. It seems like a lot of heavier lifters, people above like 90 kilos, really don't like the Asics. Now the lighter lifters do seem to enjoy them, but the Asics are quite personal. We'll probably do a personal or an individual review at those on some stage. I've tried them on before. They were okay, but I wasn't blown away. They are very expensive. Yeah, the Anta 2, not getting great reviews, or from people I've talked to who've tried them, they said they're not very nice. Apparently the Chinese national team didn't really like, a lot of the team, or about half the team, didn't like the Anta 2s either. So that is quite interesting. So I would say, in terms of weightlifting shoes to get right now, in terms of availability, I think we've got quite a good shoe here. So I enjoyed today's review, and let me know if you have any questions below, and I will try and answer them.